Tomes and Tropes podcast, where books and friendships collide. I'm Becca.
And I'm Keri, and we're two friends who love to talk about books. Today we are talking about the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series, Ruthless Vows, and we are specifically talking about part 1 today.
Exactly. Even though this book is a YA fantasy, there are some mature themes throughout. If you have any questions, we did a book bait episode on Divine Rivals, which is the first book in this series, and the trigger warnings are going to continue from Divine Rivals to Ruthless Vows.
And with that, we will be spoiling all of Divine Rivals, so make sure you have read this book before Divine Rivals, and we will not be spoiling any future parts of Ruthless Vows. So if you haven't finished Divine Rivals or part 1 of Ruthless Vows, go grab your book or books and then come back and listen.
Yep. So now for our one-sentence summaries, where we summarize each chapter we're going over in this episode in one sentence. As a reminder, this is part 1 of Ruthless Vows. Prologue. Enva walks along Broad Street thinking about the past and walked into a cafe looking for a door.
Chapter 1. With someone following her and forced distrust of her increasing, Iris heads to work at the ink-ridden Tribune with Addie.
Chapter 2. Iris comes home to a scheming Mr. Kit who accuses her of bewitching his son, being with child, and then accuses her of saving herself instead of him.
Chapter 3. After a long overdue confrontation with Forrest, Iris goes to work where a heart-pounding headline by Roman C. Kit reads, Dacker saves hundreds of wounded in Avalon Bluff.
Chapter 4. Roman has a flashback detailing what happened when he awoke below, meeting Dacre, picking out his typewriter, and starting to write his articles.
Chapter 5. Iris and Sarah Prindle come up with a plan to steal the moon. I mean, the first Alouette, which is housed at the museum.
Chapter 6. Roman has a dream about Dell and remembers that they like their middle names best, and then tells Dacre about it, who dismisses Roman's concerns.
Chapter 7. The three thieves, Sarah, Addie, and Iris, encounter more masked men while successfully stealing the first Alouette and the letters in the case.
Chapter 8. Roman awakens to a letter in his room asking 3 questions, and Iris is thrilled to find out that Roman has a typewriter where they can still write each other.
Chapter 9. After Roman's father tries to give her money to divorce Roman, she and Addie start their journey to the front lines and reunite with Marisol.
Chapter 10. Iris works in the laundry room at Lucy's house before the dinner conversation turns grimly towards evacuation plans.
Chapter 11. An exchange of cautious letters through wardrobes makes emotions and nerves run high between Roman and, quote, Elizabeth.
Keri, what did you think about part 1?
I was so excited to be back in this world. I was so excited when we finished Divine Rivals and I could start Ruthless Vows. Yes. Mm-hmm. I was just so happy to be back with our characters in the world, and I was just dying to read part 2 as soon as I finished part 1, so I hurried and finished my outline for part 1 so I could keep reading. I was like, hee hee hee. Also, I need to preface, in the one-sentence summaries, I really, for the listeners, you obviously know this, but I love Despicable Me and Minions, which is why we had that reference, because I love Minions. So, just had to throw that little note in there.
Amazing.
Anyways, back to
every time. Wait, hold on.
Okay.
For our listeners, every time Keri comes over to my house, I have a mug collection, and I have a Minions mug, and without a doubt, that is the mug that she chooses.
100%. 100%. I love Minions. They're the best. Anyways, back to Ruthless Vows.
Yes.
I love that we got a lot of the characters that we met in book 1 back in this book already, and meeting some new ones, so I'm excited to see where we go with those characters in the story. I'm also dying to know what happened to Roman's specific typewriter, even though they said it was going to be destroyed. I just have this hopeful feeling it won't be, but we can talk about that later. We do get a lot of questions answered already, which surprised me. So in our last episode of Divine Rivals, we had a lot of questions. So if you want to listen to that, please feel free to go listen to our questions and see which ones got answered. But I didn't mind that we got a lot of questions answered, but definitely thought she could have strung us along a bit and I would have been okay with it. But since we have a lot more book to read, I'm trusting the process. So, Becca, what were your initial thoughts, reactions to part 1?
Yeah, so I really like that we got a lot of those questions answered in part 1 right off the bat, right? We learned about Addie, we learned about Marisol, we learned that there had been about 2 weeks of time in between when book 1 ended and Ruthless Vows begins. We learned a little bit more about Forrest, and we got a ton of information from Dacre's point of view, which I really enjoyed. I also really enjoyed the parallels between how the letters were sent to Iris from an unknown person at the beginning of Divine Rivals, and then now Roman is getting letters from an unknown person in Ruthless Vows. So I did like those parallels. It's a very interesting parallel. I also really enjoyed how we kind of got to quote villains here. So we get Mr. Kit, who is like the worst, and then we get Dacre. So it's so interesting what Rebecca Ross has done so far with Dacre, because we are actually getting some page time with him. But I feel like in Divine Rivals, we were kind of on Enva's side because that's where our characters were. But we have gotten a prologue of her point of view, and we have not seen anything other than that of her on the page, right? We've heard she's like in the background, she's talked about, but we haven't actually spent any time with her. We spend time with Dacre, and it definitely feels like Dacre is more, quote, morally gray, right? Than just a complete villain because of the page time that we are getting with him. Now, I don't necessarily think that he is morally gray, but it makes it feel like it because we know him more than we know Enva at this point. But like I said, I would almost agree that Enva is morally gray too, right? Like based on what we know. So we just are getting more time with Dacre than we have with Enva. And it's just interesting. And then, of course, we have Mr. Kit, who's actually the worst villain. So
we actually hate him. Thank you.
Yeah, we really don't like him.
I forgot how much I hated him. Like, I just, like, until we went through our chapter summaries, I was like, oh my gosh, he's the worst.
He's the worst.
The worst.
Okay. Anyways, very interesting. I like that we got all those questions answered, and I'm excited to dig into our quotables today.
Yeah. I think she's doing a really good job so far of not letting us know which side we should be on, too. At this point. So I'm excited to see what side we should be on.
Yeah. I still feel like it's going to be Enva's side.
Probably. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Let's go and see which characters we got to meet in part 1. The first one we already met in Divine Rivals, Helena Hammond. She is the boss at Ingrid and Tribune. She seems to be really brave and bold and willing to stand up for what she believes in, so I really liked that part of her. And we got to see her again, which was really nice, but I wanted to give her a specific shout out for our meet cutes because we got a lot more of her this time. Next, we have Tobias Bexley. He drives the Roadster, is a race, like, post runner, races cars. I think he has some tricks up his sleeves. And he's definitely into Addie. Part 1, I'm like,
100%.
These two, if they're not a thing, Rebecca Ross has steered me completely wrong. So, anyways.
That's funny. No, they're definitely a thing.
If they're not,
I love that for Addie.
I know. I was like, yay, Addie gets a Roman. Like her own little Roman.
I know. It's real cute.
So cute. I like already part 1, they're already like making like eyes at each other. Like, ugh, cuties. I can't. Anyways.
Yep.
Our next one is Dacre. Or Dacre. I will forever not know how to say that. We did Dacre. I don't care. Anyways. we got to, like you were saying, Becca, we got a lot more of him specifically. He seems like a more rejected lover than anything else and very human-like, which I thought was interesting. Especially like in part 1, we see he has a key necklace on, and that's very mysterious to me. So I want to know what that key is. I think it's to the underworld, but that's just my theory. But I was listening to Heathers, the musical, last night, And I was listening to Our Love is God, and I was like,
okay.
He's Dagra. This is his song. I could just see him like being like, yes, like our love is
To
God.
Enva?
Yes, like I'll do anything. It was just giving like, I feel like he would be the one to like break out in song and be our morally gray musical theater guy.
100%.
So it was perfect. I had to add that in.
I love that.
Enva, we learn that she is trapped in a cage, or she feels like she's trapped in a cage. She walks around Oath pretty freely without notice, which is very interesting. And I want to know the two differences between Dacre and Enva right now is that Dacre is very involved in the war. Like, he's on the front lines, he's active. Enva, who knows where she is? She's just an Oath chilling. So I don't know what she's doing, which makes me, again, go with, like, very morally gray gods here.
Well, it's funny because Iris even mentions, like, nobody's seen Enva in weeks.
Mm-hmm. She's just gone.
Yeah.
Who knows? Enva's got her own vibes going. Anyways, our last, like, real, like, not, I guess our first meet cute that we actually meet that I'm mentioning here, besides Tobias, is Lucy, who is Marisol's sister. So it was fun to see that family dynamic that Marisol talked about and see that in play here. But I wanted to just quickly go over who we got to see again in part 1 so far. We obviously got to see our main characters, Iris and Roman. We got to see our gods. We got to see Sarah Prindle, which, if you all know, I love her.
We love Sarah.
10 out of 10. I want Sarah to be my friend too. Love her. We got to see Helena. We got to see Addie and Marisol, and then we got to see Mr. Kit, unfortunately.
You know, just hearing you talk about all of these people, like, we have so many secondary and tertiary characters that we love, like, as readers. Like, Sarah, I think Sarah and Addie, right away, we love them. Marisol, we also I don't think we see Keegan in part 1, but, like, we love Keegan. Like, there's so many characters, like, secondary and tertiary characters in this book that we just, like, have such a connection with as readers, and I really, really like that.
I also forgot to mention Forrest. My bad, my guy. I think it's because we were mad at him still in part 1.
Yeah.
My bad.
I'm mad at him.
Yeah, he's a butt.
A butt.
Those are our meat creek. Whoa. I'm struggling today. Those are our meet cutes. Are you ready to go into quotables?
Yeah, let's go. So our quotables are important quotes and or parts that we just want to highlight from all of these chapters, and they are in chronological order.
So I'm starting off page 1 strong here. I loved the dedication, and it's because it was very Narnia. No, oh my gosh. I can't.
I keep that one in.
Anyways, my first one starts off strong in page 1 with the dedication. So it says, for anyone who sought a different realm through a wardrobe door, who wrote a letter and is still waiting for a reply, or who dreams of stories and bleeds words. Just beautifully written. And the first line, I was like super like, it was so relatable because I was like, oh, ever since I read Narnia and watched the movies, like, I wanted to find the world in a wardrobe door. Like, my dad had a wardrobe. I would always try to go in and be like, let me into Narnia. But I just thought that was sweet.
It's funny because you have said a couple times that reading this book feels nostalgic and feels like reading Narnia. Maybe not to the caliber, the storyline. I haven't read it, so I don't know. But which we're working on, reader or listeners, we're working on it. But, like, you've said that a couple times, like, it feels familiar. And I loved, like, when I read this, I loved that there was a very clear distinction, like, hey, this is for you. Like, Keri, this book was written for you.
That's what it felt
because
like.
you dreamt of the different realm through the wardrobe door.
Exactly. That's what it felt like immediately. I was like, thank you, Rebecca Ross. Like, this is just like such a good feel-good story and book, and it makes me feel so happy. But
yeah. I thought this was interesting too, because we talked last time about her dedication and how it was for Isabel Ibanez, I believe is her last name.
I think so.
But that's like, typically I feel like authors dedicate their books to like friends or family members or spouses or something like that. And I think something that's really cool that I've been noticing lately is that authors are dedicating their books to their readers. So I really enjoyed that this was not dedicated to a specific person. It was really dedicated to the readers who like have felt these things, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, she definitely knows her readers, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
Anyways, my next quotable is from the prologue. I never can say that word either. But it says, "But all good things eventually came to an end, and all songs had a final verse." And I just wanted to put it on the record. Is this foreshadowing? Because it makes me nervous. And I know this is talking about Enva here, and we're getting a peek of her, but it makes me nervous that this could be foreshadowing, because I'm used to reading Rebecca Yarros books and start thinking everything is foreshadowing.
Literally, though. Literally. I don't know if, well, I don't want to say it's not foreshadowing, because I think it is, but I don't know if it's foreshadowing for Roman and Iris.
Okay.
I almost am wondering if it's foreshadowing for Enva and Degra.
That's what I was hoping. But
I'm very interested to see how this whole Enva Degra situation wraps up, because I'm not seeing a lot of great endings for this.
There's no good endings anywhere at this point in part 1.
No, there's really not.
Problematic gods.
Yes. So a quote that I found from chapter 1 says, "But she found that she liked to have the coat belted at her waist as if it were armor." And we are putting on our high school English teacher hat today.
Ooh.
I am not a high school English teacher, but we're pretending for today. I think we are going to continue getting references to armor from both Roman and Iris, because it was such a big theme in Divine Rivals. And every time we get a direct reference to armor, I think we can think that the character is uncomfortable or is hiding something from the other characters. And that was consistent in Divine Rivals. So, in this case, we're doing a whole essay on the word armor.
Cool.
Not really, but anyways. So, in this case, Iris is uncomfortable because she doesn't know what's going on with Roman. And she's uncomfortable with her relationship with Forrest right now, because Forrest is not the Forrest she remembers, which we're going to get into, I think, later. Do you have any quotables about him?
No, because I literally forgot about him.
Okay, well then we're going to go into it right now, because...
Do it.
I don't think I have any other quotables from him either. Forrest is kind of the worst right now, and I think we have to be cautious about how much we dislike him, because we cannot discount that he went through war, right? And war changes people. Iris has changed. We cannot discount that. But he's not being a very good brother, and he's like not taking Iris's thoughts and feelings and abilities into account. And he's like to the point where she's like paranoid because she thinks like he's following her. Like, that's not a good look for Forrest at all.
No, my guy. Red flag guy coming in.
Red flag.
My guy.
But I just like, he's just like not being a great brother right now. And I feel like he's, like I said, he's not taking into account that Iris was without him for 6 months. Actually longer. I don't remember how long they were actually at war, like at the front lines at Marisol's. but at least 5 months had passed since, like, when Divine Rivals started, since he had left for the war.
Yeah.
So at least 6 months she was without him. And, like, she lived without her mom for a while. Like, he's just not taking into account any of that. So, anyways, that's my spiel on Forrest. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about Forrest.
Well, now we officially talked about him, so we don't have to feel bad.
Exactly. Back to the armor. So she's uncomfortable with her relationship with Forrest, and she's upset with not knowing anything about Roman. She knows nothing. For all she knows, he could be dead. And she's putting on her armor to protect herself. And I think something that I think about is, like, so we've talked about armor in Divine Rivals, right? So Iris had armor, Roman had armor, and they slowly gave away pieces of that armor to the other person, right? And, like, that was super sweet. But once you put your armor back on, it's that much harder to give away pieces again. So I'm really interested to see if, like, that comes into play in the future in this book, if, like, Roman and Iris are reconnected, which I feel like we can probably assume that they will be, because this is not a Rebecca Yarros book. But if they are connected again, I'm interested to see how that plays into account, because she has her armor built up again.
Good thoughts. Good thoughts. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I had one from chapter 1 as well. It's
okay.
Actually, it's 2 in 1. It's when Mr. Kit is in her apartment. Hate that guy. Anyways.
Is that from chapter 1?
I think so.
Okay.
If not, then my apologies, listeners.
Because I have a quote from chapter 2 that talks about she tried to think of what Roman would prefer when she's talking to Mr. Kit.
Maybe this is in chapter 2.
Well, go for it.
Well,
go for it.
Chapter 1 or chapter 2. Either way, here we are. Could have been wrong. I'm on my Kindle, so it's a little harder to see what chapters, so that's probably what happened. It's okay. Kindle readers, you get it. Anyways.
Yes. We love our Kindles.
Yes, we do. The quote, the first one, I have 2 in this part, is how impossible the scene Iris had painted in her mind was, but she set her posture like iron, refusing to let her gaze break first. So, like I said, this is when Roman's dad is in her apartment and their conversation is awful, and I felt so bad for Iris in this moment. Like, what a way to meet your in-laws. Like, not great. Like, she doesn't really know too much about him, which I think is important to note. Like, Roman has said a little bit in his letters, but she's having to meet him, defend herself and Roman all at one time. Like, that's a lot to deal with after, like, a long day at the Ingrid Tribune. Like, homegirl is going through it. And I'm just really proud of how strong she was, because I think she would have, like, before Avalon Bluff, she would have, like, caved and, like, ran away or whatever. So our girl is getting stronger. But with this, my second quote from this chapter section is, "If my words have bewitched your son, then know that his possessed the same magic for me," she said, reflexively touching her wedding band again. This whole scene reminded me immediately of Lady Catherine de Bourgh and Elizabeth's conversation when she comes to Elizabeth's house and wants to know if the rumor she heard was true about her and Darcy. Like, this is from Pride and Prejudice for anyone who did not pick this up. But the vibes here were like, no. Like, she's like, will you promise to never marry my nephew? And she's, I will not promise this. Like, what? Go away. So that was, like, definitely the vibes here. And I just love Rebecca Ross, because I feel like she probably did this on purpose. I don't know if she did, but well done. Love her. Love this scene.
So this is definitely from chapter 2.
Okay.
I'm sticking my heels in.
Do it.
Because of my quote.
I'm okay with that. It leads right into your chapter 2 quote, which is probably my chapter 2 quote. It's fine.
So my quote that I pulled says, "She tried to think of what Roman would prefer, but was met by a spasm of pain in her chest." So my...
Yours is definitely more in chronological order.
Fine. Okay. So my little spiel about this is this whole scene I thought was both so good and so sad. Like I really enjoyed reading this scene, even though I hated Mr. Kit. Like I really enjoyed reading it.
Mm.
Probably one of my favorite scenes from either book so far.
Wow.
And Iris is tearing herself up for leaving Roman, and Mr. Kit comes in and just demolishes her and pokes every single one of her insecurities. And then he accuses her of being pregnant, which, can I just say, first of all, how rude to ask that of somebody?
Yes.
Secondly, how rude of him to ask her to basically tell her what she thinks or what he thinks of her, and that she's like of the gutter and like has seduced his son. Like,
what a
how rude.
jerk.
Cue Michelle Tanner.
Oh.
Right there.
It took me a second.
When Mr. Kit said that, my mouth literally dropped.
Right?
I was like Iris was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, why would you even say that?
My heart dropped. I was like, it better not be a pregnancy trope here. I
strongly dislike pregnancy tropes.
Me too.
I think that probably because, we don't want babies yet. So
yeah, that's okay.
No babies here.
Only for a long time.
Yes, we do love our fur babies. Friday was so cute this morning. For our listeners, our heater and air conditioning is broken, and Friday curled up in the bed next to me this morning, and her little tail covered her nose, and she was just so cute.
She's so adorable.
Oh man!
Did you get a picture?
No.
I know sometimes when they do stuff, like you can't move to get the picture because then they'll get up.
Yeah.
Doggies. The best.
Anyways, Mr. Kit. What a rude man. But the part that was so sad for me about this whole scene that we have both now talked about is that you realize that Roman and Iris didn't have a chance to have a good conversation about what to tell their families. Like where they would live, what their relationship was with their parents, any of that. And so she's not only grieving not being with Roman and the fact that he might be dead, but she doesn't know if he's still alive. So she's also grieving the conversations that you never get to have. And I almost think of a parent who loses a child and they think about oh, I'm never gonna be able to walk her down the aisle, or I'm never gonna be able to those kinds of things. Yeah. So that's kind of where my head's at with Iris. Not that she's giving a child, not that she has a child, but she's grieving those conversations. Yeah. And even though those are conversations you typically have before you get married, to make sure y'all are on the same page, in real life, this whole scene was just a really sad experience for her, because this is, I think, when she realized that, number one, he was not realized that he was gone, but realized that he may not be coming back, and how sad that was for her.
So sad.
So sad. But my next quote is from chapter 3, so we're getting out of that scene. Whew.
Finally. Sorry, we are obsessed.
Yeah. So my quote says, but chances are that Dacra has him very close right now, healing his wounds, stripping away all connections he once had, connections like Roman's family, his life and oath, and the things he once dreamt of, you even, anything that would interfere with his service and entice him to escape like I did. So I guess I lied earlier because I have a direct quote from Forrest. So
it's okay.
My bad. But this quote comes directly from Forrest, and he's trying to talk Iris out of pining for Roman and going to the front lines. And I'm going to first admit that, yes, I will keep giving Forrest a hard time, but oh my goodness, boy, your sister got married and her husband is missing. Of course she's gonna go after him. If you experienced all of that you just described, why aren't you trying so hard to get him out of something that was obviously a very painful experience for you. Like, why are you not trying to help?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also think you can feel the pain of what Forrest went through in Dacre's service from this quote too. But what's interesting here is Iris is getting this explanation from Forrest, right? But we as readers are also getting Roman's perspective of what this is like, and seeing like he's actually we're actually getting to see Dacre strip him away of all of these things that Forrest is telling us. So he's already stripped away his belongings, and I'm thinking of the typewriter, and the typewriter scene is so interesting. And I think you have a quote about it, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but he tried to strip away his family with the conversation about the dream with Dell. He's trying to strip away his memories and like scoff at them and think like they're not like his quote is, do you want to have a family? Like, wouldn't it make sense that you're dreaming about having a family? So it like we're getting all of that perspective while Iris is being told that from Forrest. And I just think that's really cool. And you know, what is a person if not the combination of their memories? So I don't know, just kind of interesting.
Dang. That's a really good pull. Yeah, the typewriter scene, I just used the have the other destroyed. And obviously I mentioned this in our initial reactions and thoughts, but I'm predicting and really hopeful that the other typewriter is not destroyed. I don't know why, because I feel like it's just false hope here. But I really hope that, I don't know. I hope that it wasn't destroyed. But what do you think? Do you think it's gone?
So I had a quote right from before this that I didn't put in here, but it says Roman hesitated, torn between the typewriter that had reminded him of his name and the one that reminded him that he was alive. And I think honestly, like first of all, what a sweet way to put that.
Ugh.
That like ownership versus like freedom, right? I loved that quote. But
Roman.
Secondly, I think Roman's typewriter is gone. Like, I guess I don't know why it wouldn't be gone. And I think now that Iris has the other Alouette from the museum, like there's not really a reason for the one that Roman had to be around. Like, what would, I guess, Keri, what would your reasoning be that it's not destroyed? Like, do you foresee any like plot in the future?
No. Just, it would have to be something that, like, I forget the name of his right hand man that he told him to like destroy it to, or whoever he told him to destroy it to. But it would have to be he defied his direct order to not destroy it, which I think is not likely. So it's just hopeful thinking.
So kind of going off of this, I thought it was very interesting that I didn't even think about this at first, like when I was reading Divine Rivals, but having 3 Alouettes gives the story like it's like here for the plot, right? Yeah. But like it gives hope. And like I didn't even see the museum heist happening. Like I loved that like we had like the National Treasure type museum heist. Like I just really enjoyed that, but I did not foresee it happening. It didn't even like click in my mind until they were like, oh, there's the 3rd Alouette, remember? So,
and maybe that's why I think that this other one wasn't destroyed. Like maybe because when I first read this, I was like, oh my gosh, how are they supposed to communicate? But then I like forgot, like same as you, like forgot about that one in the museum.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just why I was like hoping that they would somehow have connection and they would find it, but obviously that's not where the story's going. So we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, like I said, I didn't see the museum heist coming, so maybe there's another heist.
Who knows?
So my next quotable comes from chapter 6, and it says, "It is about far more than that, but I don't expect you to understand, given that you are mortal and unmarried. You've never uttered a vow or felt it settle in your bones like magic. You've never sworn yourself to another." Oh, how wrong you are, Mr. Dacre.
You think you know
Roman.
everything, boy.
So here's my question about this, actually, is Roman had been married, uttered a vow, and it has settled into his bones. It's just waiting to come back out. And I'm hoping we get like that click, right?
Mhm.
I'm hoping we get that instance of like recognition. But I am I'm wondering if this quote from Dacre is not a "I don't know." It's a "I know you were married, but I'm trying to keep that away from you."
That's a good
Because he
point.
does the same thing with Dell, and Dacre would know. Because didn't Roman have a ring?
Unless it fell off during the chaos in Avalon Bluff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
I agree,
don't
though. I feel
know.
like he would have known that info.
But I really liked how like this was described, like vows settle in your bones like magic. And I'm hoping that that comes into play later.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh,
Yeah.
such cuties. I think this is right after that, but in chapter 6, he says, "My name is Rowan Carver Kit, and this is a dead man's story." First off, my guy is dramatic, and I'm here for it. Like, love
Here
this.
for it.
Love this. But I wanted to take this quote out because we need to talk about how both Forrest and Roman were dead and now alive because of Dacre. And like, this is crazy. And they should be dead, but for some reason they were chosen to not be. And why are they not? What is the reason? Dacre mentions that he knew of Roman even before. And I think this is because of his family. He obviously thinks he'll be used for a greater purpose, which makes me nervous. Makes me very nervous. So keeping an eye out for that as we read the story. And chapter 8 is my next quotable. It is, "That was when he noticed it. A piece of paper rested on the floor just before the wardrobe." I literally, when I read this, I was like, I was literally in the doctor's office, like waiting in the patient room. So I wasn't surrounded by anyone and I was by myself, so I could do this. It's the best timing. My doctor was taking forever. So
Can we just talk about how the doctor's office is the perfect place to read?
I got so much
like
reading
you
done.
literally you have nothing else to do. You are sitting there waiting. You're at somebody else's whim. But I do have to say, almost without a doubt, my doctor tends to always like interrupt when I'm like in the middle of like the fight scene and you don't know if people are gonna live or die. But yes, the doctor's office, 10 out of 10 place to read.
10 out of 10.
I don't know if there's a better place to read. If I'm at home, I get distracted. If I'm out at the store, I get distracted. Well, I say store, at the bookstore.
I was gonna say, how much do you read in grocery shop? That's a skill.
I'm thinking like sitting and having my little Starbucks at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I cannot think of, well, I guess like in a hammock.
Yeah, I would say like anywhere outside because then you can leave your phone like inside and then
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I interrupted.
No, we gotta talk about where to read is best. So listeners, where's your favorite place to read? Tell us. But
let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I was excited about this specific quote because of the parallels that you talked about in your initial reactions. And we're getting from the first book to the second where one knows what's going on and one doesn't. And it's switched this time, which I think is really cool because she uses a lot of the same techniques that Roman did. And I thought that was cute.
Very cute. So my next quotable is from chapter 8. And the quote says, "You have a prestigious family name, one that has been of great support to me and my efforts, and I will not forget those who have faithfully served me." And I think this goes back to what you were just saying, like Dacre knows about Roman beforehand. And I do think this is coming from his family because obviously his family has been a support to him in his efforts.
Yeah.
But we are going to go back to a conversation in Divine Rivals that we had with Miss Little.
Ooh.
So after the dinner with the Littles, with Mr. Stuart Little, that's not really his name, but that's all I can see. Remember, Roman and his dad had a conversation in his dad's office after this about the fact that Roman was not going to marry Miss Little. And it was like a big deal to Roman. And his dad was like, no, you're going to marry him or her. And his dad showed him the box of bombs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we get the lunch with Miss Little and Roman, and she says something like, Roman asks her about them, and she says something like, Roman, they're not bombs. And he's like, well, what are they? And she says, you'll learn once like we're married or whatever. And then we're going back a little bit from the dinner party. Roman thinks that the Littles may be Dacra sympathizers, like at the dinner. So what if what her and her dad were making were not bombs? They were the gas bombs that the Ethereals dropped that separated Roman and Iris.
Oh, he will get angry.
Uh-huh. What also irritates me is that Mr. Kit, who is the worst, is serving Dacra, especially with like his nan, who is so aligned to like with magic and whatever. And she's the one who tells Roman the tale of Dacra and Enva. So it's not like the family is not aware. And it irritates me that Mr. Kit is supporting Dacra, but like he hasn't told his son that he is. Like, why are you keeping it a secret from your family? I just don't know. That
He's the worst.
Sketch to me.
He's the worst.
The worst.
That's all.
Speaking of him being the worst.
Yeah. Chapter 9. Mr. Kit offering to pay her to annul the marriage. What the crap? That made me so angry.
So angry.
She was like, what? Not even thinking twice. Like, no. Tell my father-in-law that I will not. She was so sassy.
I love sassy Iris. I am here for it.
Like, sassy wife Iris is awesome. I love her.
Yep.
Okay, so for our final quotable, chapter 11, you can call me Elizabeth. So this is the huge parallel we saw when he was like, you can call me Carver. And I just love them. I'm really excited for a reunion. I cannot wait. I'm just saying. Putting it on the record. When it happens, we're going to be talking about it a lot on the podcast.
We are going to be talking about it a lot.
Woo. All right, let's do our sipping tea with our characters, if you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Helena, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So, I know this segment is supposed to be sipping tea with our characters.
We're doing drinks. It's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not a tea, and neither is the next one. So,
that's okay.
Sorry, y'all. But I think Helena is in iced shaken espresso.
Ooh.
Espresso, excuse me. It's espresso, it's not
okay.
espresso.
It's okay. Everyone says espresso. It's funny. Yes. I did a black tea, but with 2 tea bags to make it extra strong, and a lemon slice.
Okay.
Ah. Tobias.
Nice. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I just did 2 shots of espresso, straight up. Nothing.
Really?
Because I was thinking like speed. So like he likes to be fast, so he would want something he can just chug real quick, and that would give him a boost of energy, and he can just keep going.
That's such a good one. I took the complete opposite.
Tell me.
I said he would be a caramel apple spice.
Oh, I love a caramel apple spice.
First of all,
so good.
So good. When Keri and I went to New York City, that is what got me through.
That kept us awake during Wicked.
Well, caramel apple spice doesn't have any caffeine in it.
It has sugar.
Well, yes, that's true. That's true. I just meant I was very dehydrated. And not that this is the most hydrating drink, but
It's okay.
It's delicious. But anyways, I said caramel apple spice because he is sweet and caring, and I feel like he, like, I imagine him as like the like lovable, like, best friend character.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's just like not like, I see your point with the espresso, but I feel like he just doesn't need the caffeine. He's just like, that's who he is. That's how he like what he loves. And like any other flavor is going to be too strong for him.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
What about Marisol's sister, Lucy?
Okay, so I said she is a royal English breakfast tea with a splash of almond milk.
Very warm and cozy.
I think it's very standoffish.
Really?
Lucy?
Yeah.
We get a quote that says like she's like very hesitant about newcomers and it takes her a long time to trust people.
I don't know. I guess I missed that completely. I think I must have paired her immediately with Marisol. Because I said she was a hot caramel honey black tea.
Okay.
Because it, like, very sweet, very kind. But probably, you're right. She probably is like that at first, but then, like, a warm hug when she gets to know you and trust you.
Yeah.
I love it. Look at us.
Look at us. We disagreed on all of those.
I know. I love that.
I do
You would think that we wouldn't like disagreeing, but it makes things more interesting.
It does. All right. Whew. Okay, so today's magical moment section is going to be a little different than normal, and I'm pretty sure I've said that almost every episode.
It's magical because you don't know what you're gonna get.
Basically. It's basically welcome to my TED Talk.
Hey,
so
we should magical moments with Becca.
I love it.
Little woo. We should mark that clip. Banner? We should mark that clip and then make a little thing for social media. Magical moments with Becca.
Okay, so
okay.
My face hurts now.
Me too.
Okay. So right from the prologue, we get Enva's magic. And what's interesting to me here is that all humans perceived all the gods to be dead. However, obviously, we have Dacra and Enva alive. Now, Dacra has been asleep for a really long time, but they're both alive. And in the previous book, they're both alive. So we get this quote from the prologue that says, quote, "It was enough to hold her former lover beneath the loam for centuries by mortal reckoning, and she had reassured the human king in time. As for the other three divines, Alva, Mur, and Luce, Enva had never been worried about their waking." So I pulled that specific quote because obviously we have Dacra. The reason that he was presumed dead was because of Enva and he sang her to sleep. And my question here is, why is she not worried about the other three awakening? Are they already awake like she is? Because the presumed thought was that they were all buried, right? Enva is even talked about having a grave, like Forrest and Iris were going to go to the grave to like taste the magic in the air. So like she was presumed dead. So obviously she's not been dead this whole time.
Yeah.
And this is going back to one of my questions I had when we finished Divine Rivals. So I dug into what we know about the gods from Divine Rivals as well as part 1. This is not spoiling anything from the future of Ruthless Vows. This is just part 1 and back. So we have 5 gods that are mentioned: Dacra, Enva, Alva, Mur, and Luce. Now, in one of the stories, the fable goes that the gods had been fooled into drinking a poisonous drink and that they had died. And that's one of the fables we get in Divine Rivals. However, in this story, we get the quote that says, "But perhaps it had been Enva and her harp all along," which meant there had only ever been 4 gods slumbering, with the 5th still roaming in secret. So I think we said that one, like, we can take from there that Enva has been alive. Like, she's never really been dead. And I do think we get that confirmation in the prologue, right?
Yeah.
So we do get another line that says, quote, "And when she decided to step into this hall again 2 centuries later, she carried her harp with a vow lodged in her heart to make him and his court sleep for 100 years. So all of this is saying, like, Enva is the reason that Dacre has been asleep for so long. We also get this, like, little quote. It's at the end of the story that Roman writes Iris from his Nan, and it's talking about how, like, she sang for a whole year and she didn't realize the magic that, like, it would drain her that much of magic, but she sang for a whole year to, like, keep him asleep for as long as possible. So my question here is related to the other gods. Why is she not worried about them awakening? Are they already awake, or are they truly dead? And I have a prediction.
Oh?
I would like to say that I have not read Ruthless Vows at all yet. I have no idea if this is true or not.
This is not a spoiler.
We're just theorizing. It's not a spoiler. If you don't mind my little digression, listen up. I think that Dacre was the only one who has been asleep for all this time. I think the other 4 have been roaming around. I also think that we may have already met the other gods, at least one of them, and we just don't know it yet. So remember, we have Enva, Dacre, Alva, Myr, and Luce. So what if Marisol is the goddess Myr, and her sister Lucy is actually the goddess Luce?
Interesting.
So Lucy is technically in the Central Borough, which is where Luce is supposed to be buried. And the only thing, so let's go back a little bit to our last magical moments that we had with the last part of Divine Rivals. The reason that I think this is because Myr gives this, or Marisol, we get this
already
quote
switching them up.
We get this quote from Marisol that says, quote, "This house will not fall while I'm within it." And she's so confident. So I already think that Marisol has a little bit of magic in her, or at least it could be the house, but we're leaning towards in her because we're trying to be our self-fulfilled prophecy over here. So we already have that little bit. And Myr and Marisol are very close names.
Obviously.
And then Luce and Lucy are very close names, and they're sisters. So hold on.
And Marisol says that she doesn't have any biological, like, sisters. She just makes, like, family where she makes them. You know? Kind of like that. I don't remember the exact quote.
I don't remember that quote.
Because she was like, oh, they're not they're not blood or something, but blood is what you make it, or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't remember that, but I trust you.
Okay. I could be
we're gonna go with that. So the only thing that's making me not want to think this, and actually there's 2 things, because I'm really not sure where Keegan falls into this, because we have Alva, and I don't know what Alva, that's not even a close relation, so I don't even know. But Myr is an underling and Luce is a skyward. So they're not of the same family, which honestly may, like, support your point, what you just said about, like, how they're not blood related. So maybe that's it. However, if there are only 5 gods / goddesses left, then they probably have more in common with each other than anyone else, which would, like, you know, they've gone through it together. Like I said, I'm also not sure how Keegan fits into all this, so maybe there's more than one thing disproving this, but I'm just thinking out loud. Anyways.
That can all be
just thinking out loud. Just thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm. Thinking out loud.
Oh! Our own private concert
Ew,
from Keri?
no. Let's
was
wrap this up
beautiful.
now. We can cut that out.
All right. Well, listeners, thank you so much for listening to us today. If you liked today's episode, please rate and review us wherever you listen and give us 5 stars. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you press that like and subscribe button
Ding.
to get notified of all of our new episodes coming out. This is honestly the best thing you can do for any podcaster, but most especially us. That and share us with your friends, because if you like us, they probably do too.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been trying to get your friends to read Divine Rivals, this is a great way to read it together. And now you guys can read Ruthless Vows with us as well. So share us with your friends.
Love it. For more content, make sure to follow us on both Instagram and TikTok. It's at Tomes and Tropes Pod. Or if you have thoughts about this episode or this book, email us at tomesandtropespod@gmail.com. That was almost bad. We'd really love to hear your thoughts on if the typewriter was actually destroyed, what Dacre's key necklace is to, what will happen next, no spoilers, and we're going to add on what you think about Becca's prediction for the magical moments. Yeah. But we'll see you next week for part 2 of Ruthless Vows.
Stay curious and keep reading.
Bye.
Bye.